I want to bring in CNN global and political affairs analyst, the Axios correspondent, Barak Ravid, who's had that news-breaking conversation with the president. Also with us, CNN national security analyst, Alex Plitzis. He's also the director of the counterterrorism program at the Atlantic Council and an Army veteran himself. Barak, let me start with you. Take us inside your conversation with the President of the United States yesterday.
Well, Wolf, the president, I think, was very clear on the one hand that he's seriously considering going back to major combat operations in Iran and launching an operation that would be bigger than Epic Fury. And I think this is very meaningful. At the same time, he said several times during our conversation that he hasn't made a decision yet and that he's aware that taking such a decision for, starting Epic Fury 2 will have major consequences on the region and on the U.S. and on the global economy. And so I think that the president is still undecided as far as I know, including last I checked was last night. He still hasn't made a decision to escalate, to go on an all-out war. And I think what the president wants to see still is if there is some kind of diplomatic off-ramp. And I'll point out to two significant issues. Number one, for 4 days now, there have been no attacks by Iran on ships in the Strait of Hormuz. One reason for it is the fact that the Iranian capability to attack ships has been significantly degraded. Another reason is that there are diplomatic talks over this issue. And this brings me to the second point. An Omani delegation is going to hold talks in Tehran today about arrangements in the Strait of Hormuz. This is very meaningful because what Oman and Iran will agree could be the diplomatic off-ramp that would de-escalate the situation.
But what would a major escalation of this war, the U.S. combat operations, what do you think, Alex, that would look like?
Well, so at this point, we don't have any mass mobilization of ground forces. So there's been, conversations in Washington, people making really politicized statements that they're going to go, quote, finish the job. You can't really do regime change from the air. So what we're talking about would be sustained air and missile strikes again to attrit whatever remaining capabilities there are to conduct offensive operations along the strait, as Barak just mentioned accurately. They've been degraded, but also more infrastructure targets and other military targets inside the country. Let's not forget that there was a ceasefire in place before U.S. Central Command had exhausted its entire list of targets that have been determined by intelligence operations over the last several decades.
And Alex, a follow-up. We've seen Iran withstand a lot of punishing airstrikes over these past several months. What would the U.S. have to do differently now to get things going in the right direction?
Well, that's precisely the question. And so there's been a divide between the civilian negotiators and the IRGC that's been made clear. Again, as Barak just mentioned, the Omani meeting with the Iranians is very important because the last time they met and discussed this, there was a proposal that the Omanis would have their quarter in the south of the Strait of Hormuz free of movement, free of tolls. The Iranians can sort of do what they want. And when they went back, the foreign minister said, Arakchi, I have to go back and get the National Security Council on board. Less than 3 hours later, 2 hours later, they responded by hitting ships and striking regional countries. So could you effectively move those National Security Council officials? And I'm told it's not just Vahidi. I'm told it's the IRGC Navy commander and a bunch of others. So that it's not just one individual holding this up. They would have to collectively change their opinion. And is it financial? Is it others? There's a bit of face saving here. It's not really 100% clear what the military objectives would be that would be sufficient to move them at this point.
And Barak, President Trump told you yesterday that Iran wants to negotiate. So why does the president not take that off-ramp right now?
No, so he said that the Iranians want to negotiate, but at the same time, he said that he doesn't think they're ready to sign a deal on his terms. And that's why he said that they might need to suffer some more pain before they agree to his terms. By the way, I think at least what I hear from a lot of people is that the IRGC just does not want a deal at the moment. While some people within the Iranian leadership definitely do, the IRGC at the time doesn't seem to want a deal, regardless of how much pain it is going to suffer.
the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran. Barak Ravid and Alex Plesis, to both of you, thanks very much for your expertise. And still ahead,